Red Bull has been hit by an explosive claim involving a fresh FIA investigation and a wing scandal, but the evidence provided does not support that story. The source contains no confirmed Red Bull investigation, no disputed wing, no technical ruling, and no official finding against the team. Instead, it lists separate penalty reports involving Lewis Hamilton, the British Grand Prix, and an FIA review connected to Pierre Gasly. That means the biggest question is not how serious the Red Bull scandal is. It is whether the scandal exists at all. Because if a headline this dramatic can spread without one confirmed technical detail, then the real danger may be misinformation moving faster than the truth. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why this story is so dangerous, you have to separate the headline from the evidence. The headline suggests Red Bull is in serious trouble. It suggests the FIA has launched a deeper investigation. It suggests a wing scandal has already been exposed. But the source provided does not confirm any of those things. There is no official Red Bull statement, no FIA technical document, no ruling about a front wing, rear wing, or flexible bodywork, no confirmed inspection, and no verified punishment linked to Red Bull. That means the first major question is not whether Red Bull broke the rules. The first major question is where the claim came from. Because in Formula One, technical controversies can become enormous very quickly. One photograph appears. One rival raises a concern. One unusual movement is noticed on track. Then fans begin slowing down footage, comparing angles, and searching for anything that looks suspicious. Within hours, a possible question can become an alleged scandal. And an alleged scandal can become a supposed investigation. But those are not the same thing. A question is not proof. A complaint is not a conviction. And an FIA inspection is not automatically evidence that a team has cheated. That distinction matters more than ever. Formula One cars are inspected constantly. Teams are asked for information. Components are measured. Technical documents are reviewed. That is part of normal competition. The FIA does not need a public scandal before it checks a car. And a check does not mean a rule has been broken. Think of it like airport security. A bag can be searched without the passenger being guilty of anything. The search exists to protect the system. The same principle applies here. If the FIA examines a wing, that alone does not prove illegality. It only proves that the component is being checked. But the source does not even confirm that such a check happened in this case. Instead, the material lists unrelated stories. Lewis Hamilton receiving a late penalty decision at the British Grand Prix. Another report about a harsh FIA penalty connected to the same event. A separate grid penalty after an investigation. And an FIA review involving Pierre Gasly. Those reports may involve official decisions. But they do not establish a Red Bull wing controversy. They do not describe an illegal design. They do not name a Red Bull engineer. And they do not explain what regulation was supposedly broken. That missing detail changes everything. Because every real technical case has a specific center. A component. A measurement. A rule. A test. A decision. Without those elements, the story has no technical foundation. And this is where the language of the headline becomes important. Big trouble. Further investigation. Wing scandal exposed. Each phrase creates certainty. Each phrase tells the listener that something serious has already happened. But the source does not provide that certainty. That does not prove Red Bull is completely free from scrutiny. It means the available evidence cannot support the accusation. And there is a major difference between those two statements. One protects accuracy. The other pretends to know more than the source reveals. That is why this story becomes a lesson in how Formula One rumors spread. The sport is perfect for technical suspicion. The cars are complicated. The regulations are detailed. The public cannot see every measurement. And teams rarely explain sensitive design choices in full. That creates mystery. Mystery creates speculation. And speculation creates attention. But attention is not evidence. A wing can look unusual without being illegal. It can move slightly without failing the official test. It can exploit the wording of a regulation while remaining inside the rules. And it can attract complaints from rivals simply because it works well. That last point matters. Teams do not need to believe a rival is cheating before they ask questions. Sometimes they want clarification. Sometimes they want the FIA to tighten a test. Sometimes they want to understand where the legal boundary sits. And sometimes they want to place pressure on a competitor. That is part of Formula One politics. A technical argument can happen in the garage, in a meeting, through formal correspondence, and through the media at the same time. The public may hear only the loudest version. And the loudest version is usually the least careful. That is how a concern becomes a scandal before a verdict exists. But there is another reason Red Bull's name attracts these stories. Success creates suspicion. When one team finds performance that others cannot immediately explain, rivals begin searching for the reason. Sometimes the answer is better design. Sometimes better execution. Sometimes a clever interpretation of the rules. And sometimes there is a genuine legal problem. But the order matters. Evidence must come before accusation, not after it. Without evidence, the claim remains only a claim. And in this case, the source does not provide the basic facts required to move beyond that point. No wing specification. No test result. No investigation date. No FIA quotation. No official decision. No penalty. That is not a small gap. That is the entire case. And this is where the story becomes more interesting than the headline itself. Because the real issue may not be Red Bull's wing. It may be how easily unrelated FIA stories can be grouped together to create the appearance of a major investigation. One penalty involving Hamilton. One grid decision at the British Grand Prix. One review involving Gasly. Place those headlines beside a dramatic Red Bull claim, and the page suddenly feels official. It feels connected. It feels serious. But connection must be demonstrated, not implied. The same organization appearing in several stories does not mean those stories form one investigation. The FIA oversees the entire championship. Its name appears in penalties, reviews, technical checks, appeals, and sporting decisions every week. That does not make every decision part of the same scandal. Imagine reading several police reports from the same city. One concerns speeding. One concerns a parking violation. One concerns a stolen bicycle. Then someone uses those reports to claim a completely different person is under criminal investigation. The existence of real police activity does not prove the new accusation. The logic does not connect. That is the problem here. The listed reports may be real, but they do not support the Red Bull wing claim. And if that foundation is weak, every conclusion built on top of it becomes weaker. Red Bull in crisis. Possible disqualification. Championship consequences. Rival protests. None of those claims can be responsibly made from the source provided. Not yet. That final word matters. Because Formula One investigations can develop. New documents can appear. The FIA can issue clarification. Teams can protest. Technical directives can change. But until something official or independently verified emerges, the story must remain where the evidence leaves it. Unconfirmed. And that creates a different kind of tension. Not tension over what Red Bull has done. Tension over whether a major accusation is being manufactured from unrelated information. Because if that is happening, the damage begins before any ruling. Fans assume guilt. Rivals gain political pressure. Every Red Bull component becomes suspicious. And every future FIA inspection looks like proof of a scandal that was never established. That is how narratives become difficult to reverse. Once people believe a team is hiding something, even normal procedures look suspicious. A routine measurement becomes a raid. A clarification becomes a warning. A minor adjustment becomes an admission. And the absence of a penalty becomes evidence that the authorities are protecting someone. At that point, the rumor becomes almost impossible to kill. Because every outcome is reinterpreted to support it. That is why accuracy matters from the beginning. The correct position is not that Red Bull is guilty. It is not that Red Bull is innocent of every possible concern. It is that this source does not provide enough evidence to prove a wing scandal or a further FIA investigation. That may sound less dramatic, but it is the only conclusion supported by the material. And the next stage is where the real test begins. If a genuine investigation exists, there should be something concrete. A regulation. A component. A test. A complaint. A statement. Or a ruling. Without one of those, the scandal remains a headline searching for evidence. And Red Bull's biggest problem may not be an illegal wing. It may be that millions of people could believe the verdict before the case has even begun. And this is where the difference between a real investigation and a dramatic headline becomes impossible to ignore. A genuine wing controversy would normally leave a trail. There would be a specific component under scrutiny. A clear technical question. A regulation that may have been interpreted in a controversial way. A test, an inspection, a protest, or an official clarification. There would be something concrete enough for teams, journalists, and the public to examine. But the source provided gives none of that. It does not identify whether the supposed issue involves the front wing or the rear wing. It does not explain what the wing allegedly does. It does not name the rule Red Bull is accused of breaking. And it does not include a statement from the FIA confirming that a further investigation exists. That absence is not a small problem. It is the most important fact in the story. Because without a specific technical issue, there is nothing to test. Without a regulation, there is nothing to compare. And without an official action, there is no investigation to describe as confirmed. That is why the phrase further investigation is so powerful. It makes the audience assume there was already a first investigation. It creates the feeling that new evidence has appeared. It suggests the case is getting worse. But the material does not establish any earlier Red Bull wing case in the first place. That means the word further may be doing more work than the evidence. And this is where people can be misled without a single fully invented sentence. A headline does not always need to make a direct false claim. Sometimes it only needs to place words together in a way that creates a false impression. Red Bull, FIA, investigation, wing scandal. Each word is believable on its own. Together, they create a complete story in the listener's mind. But the source still has to connect them. And here, it does not. That is the central problem. The listed articles involve FIA penalties and reviews, but they concern other drivers and other situations. Lewis Hamilton appears in 2 of the reports. The British Grand Prix appears in another. Pierre Gasly appears in a separate review. None of those names or events proves that Red Bull is facing a wing investigation. The fact that all of them involve the FIA does not create a link. The FIA is involved in almost every major sporting and technical decision in Formula One. Its presence alone proves nothing about Red Bull. That sounds obvious when stated clearly. But headlines depend on speed. They depend on the audience reacting before asking where the evidence comes from. And Formula One is especially vulnerable to that. The sport is filled with rules that most viewers never see in full. Flexible bodywork, load tests, technical directives, deflection limits, inspection procedures. Those terms sound complicated, and complication creates opportunity. A vague accusation can feel credible simply because the subject is difficult to understand. That is why simple questions matter. What part is under investigation? What did it allegedly do? Which rule is involved? Who confirmed the investigation? What evidence exists? If those questions cannot be answered, then the story is not ready to be presented as fact. But here is where the tension increases. Even an unsupported accusation can have real consequences. Red Bull may be forced to respond to something that has not been proven. Rival fans may assume the team has been caught. Every future technical check may be interpreted as evidence. And every improvement in performance may be viewed with suspicion. The rumor begins shaping reality before any official finding exists. That is dangerous for the team. But it is also dangerous for the championship. Because technical trust is part of the sport. Fans need to believe that the cars are being judged by the same rules. Teams need to believe that enforcement is consistent. And drivers need to believe that results will not later be rewritten by confusion. When unsupported claims spread, that trust weakens. People stop waiting for rulings. They choose a verdict based on the team they support. A Red Bull fan may call the story an attack. A rival fan may call it proof of cheating. Neither position is supported by the source. But both positions can become emotionally powerful. That is how technical questions turn into tribal conflict. And once that happens, facts become less important than identity. The same image is interpreted in opposite ways. The same statement becomes either a denial or a confession. The same inspection becomes either routine or suspicious. At that point, almost nothing can calm the argument. That is why the FIA's role, if a real case exists, would be critical. The governing body would need to define the issue clearly. It would need to explain what was examined. It would need to show whether the component passed the relevant test. And it would need to state what happens next. But the source provides no such explanation. There is no official language, no technical finding, no penalty decision involving Red Bull, and no confirmation that the team has been ordered to change a wing. That means the public cannot responsibly jump to championship consequences.